amazing to see what innovation is doing in the packaging world. With the Bud Light example, it's amazing to see that the package itself became even more valuable than what they were consuming. So there's a lot to do with packaging, a lot of innovation that matters. And one of the words that you used in your presentation, Joe, was that millennials look for authenticity. They used the word inauthentic when they were looking at some of the packaging types that were out there. As we segue into a presentation on an incredible innovation that really gives that millennial generation an authentic experience around sustainability, I'm delighted to begin with a video. So, Joe, would you mind queuing the video up for us? Yep. So just to clear any potential confusion, SmartSolve is a division of CMC Group along with Century Label, and we are a part of a corporation that has multiple divisions involved in multiple aspects of labeling, packaging, and otherwise other industries. We've been involved with this specific technology since the mid-90s, and it's been something that we've seen develop and grow. And it's something that has inspired us to reach new heights, to identify new industries and new opportunities. I recently listened to an author of a book speak at a forum. His name's Simon Sinek, and he wrote the book The Infinite Game. And he was comparing companies that are pursuing finite metrics, finite goals, finite ends. He used the example specifically of Microsoft, who's always trying to create the best gadget, the better gadget than that which their ultimate competitor would have of Apple. And then he went on to compare Apple to the infinite company, pursuing infinite goals, infinite metrics, and infinite ends. And as you look at the millennial generation and that word authenticity, that really stands out to me when you compare companies that pursue finite ends versus companies that pursue infinite ends. And what Apple has done to capture that infinite pursuit of opportunity is they go deeper. They go beyond simply a technology, beyond an innovation, and they tap deeper into the apparatus that moves the soul, that moves the heart, that moves the mind of the individual. With this innovation, I think we have a similar opportunity, especially as it relates to sustainability. Let me take us back, however, first into the 1950s. Water-soluble, paper-based technology, in our minds, is very comparable to that of Velcro technology. It was a guy walking through the cockleburs in Belgium in the woods, found cockleburs, got them stuck to his pants, and realized that he had something that would be able to be used in a very dynamic manner. Now, what was impressive about this inventor was he did not limit that innovation to one opportunity. He saw it as something that had global ramifications and was able to, with broad vision, take it into industries, including aerospace industries, shoes, and homes, everywhere around the world. We think water-soluble, paper-based technology has a similar opportunity. So today, given the fact that it's a premium technology, that it's extremely expensive, there's a lot of cost factors associated with it, that every conversation that we'll have with individuals, that's the first thing that we want to put on the table, is it's going to be more expensive. So what are the value proposition components of the technology that drive the customer to make a decision to say, yes, I want to invest in this opportunity? So of the six, the first one is employee safety. With employee safety, it's one of the most critical aspects of how a corporation runs. If a company has an incredible technology and vision, but it doesn't keep its employees safe or doesn't keep its consumers safe, then we're in big trouble. some examples of what a water-soluble barrier can do. Specifically, when you form a water-soluble paper-based pouch, you can put inside of it dry chemicals, for example, pesticides, that can go inside of the pouch, and then once that pouch is sealed and delivered into the field where the farmer is, no longer will the farmer have to open up the package and pour the powder out into the mixture, causing potential aspirational elements of that pesticide into their lungs or touching it with their skin. You now have a water-soluble barrier that protects their skin and their breathing from needing to come in contact with that pesticide. So that's an example of one way in which a water-soluble barrier can be used to generate employee safety. Next, I'll talk about sustainability. I mentioned this at the beginning. This generation, the millennials, and a lot of the CPGs that are seeking to tap into that purchasing power that Joe was talking about, this is a buzzword for them. And it's critical that materials have the ability to register on these varied metrics of what is green. So what the water-soluble paper-based technology that we have been using, we've been able to leverage all different types of independent laboratory testing and all different types of certifications, including the ones that you see here on the screen, like EU REACH and California Prop 65. What makes water-soluble paper different from its other water-soluble products that are out in the market, primarily that of PVA. When most people think of water-soluble, they think of the Tide Pods that go into your dishwasher. The primary driver of difference between those two items is that the water-soluble PVA is petroleum-based, whereas water-soluble paper is fiber-based. And that's a big opportunity to demonstrate a characteristic that a company looking for sustainability metrics would have interest in. We'll move to the next benefit, and we'll talk about time savings. Go back one there, Joe, thanks. Regarding time savings, there's a lot of opportunities for this, but one of the things that I can say that you will probably resonate with me on is anytime you buy a glass or a vase or a jar at a store and you bring that vase home and there's a label that's stuck to it, how much time do we spend trying to carve off that label from that vase or that jar? Significant amounts of time. This is where, and that's just one example of many, this is where water-soluble labels with our technology, with the technology that can be used, water-soluble labels can simply be put under the sink and washed away. It's as simple as that. So the time savings delivered to the customer allow for the value proposition to justify an increase in spend on that type of label. Next, we'll go into labor savings. I can use that same example, but now talk about it in an industrial format. There are all sorts of reusable plastic containers that are used to transport food. Those RPCs, as they are called, use permanent labels, and those permanent labels go to wash centers where there are dozens of employees that are employed to simply get those labels off. Because if there's residue that remains on that container, it has become a possible transfer. There's a possibility of transferring the bacteria from the previous food that was being contained in the RPC to the next food that's being placed in it. So these people are employed to take off those labels. Well, when you introduce a water-soluble label, you immediately reduce the need to have labor involved in that process, and you simply, as it goes to the wash center, see the label go away. If I'll move to the next slide here, Joe, for me, thank you. Innovation, and this is where the conversations get very exciting with potential customers that you may interface with. The story of Velcro that I mentioned has become relevant with this specific technology, from aerospace to agriculture to anything you could possibly imagine in the bathroom. If you were to pay me $1 million to guess what innovation your customer is coming to deliver, to talk to you about with this type of technology, I wouldn't be able to guess it. It's a technology that has significant opportunity because it is used as a raw material. And off of that raw material, there are unlimited configurations that can be built and unlimited opportunity to try and use that substrate in a manner that helps to meet the customer's desire and demand. So I'll go to the next one. And that is product portioning. So this is the final benefit I'll highlight. With product portioning, the story of the Tide Pods, I think, tells it best. It's the ability to give consumers the ease of use of a single pod that they can just pull out of a package and drop into their dishwasher and not have to think about it twice. The same story could be told with detergents, and there's a lot of dry powders that are out there. And I should make note of this, water-soluble paper is not going to work with a liquid, it works with solids. So anything that's powdery, anything that's dry will fit inside of this technology, and the technology will work as you saw in the video. So with single-use detergents and the opportunities to make life at home more convenient for consumers while telling that sustainability story is a tremendous opportunity for folks looking to engage this technology. And as I close it out, the thing that I'd like to point out is the ways in which this technology can be used, ways that we have used it, from label stock to pouches to board stock, and all sorts of variations in between. The technology has been converted, as I mentioned, leveraging it as a raw material and then turning it into something that helps the customer meet their specific need and their specific vision and requirement for the technology is what we have been able to do, and we're certain and confident that the same value propositions that make this function you will also find in your company and your business. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me talk about water-soluble technology, and Joe talk about the innovation in flexible packaging space. We're delighted to be a part of this presentation and looking forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, gentlemen. Much appreciated. Excellent presentation. And we've come to that portion what I think is often the most interesting is the questions and answers. By the way, I personally have viewed this technology and I found it very interesting. It's one of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation. You guys did a great job. So a couple questions have come through, and let me get started here. And I'll just throw them up, and I think Joe and Johnny, you'll know which one to answer. I believe, Joe, you talked about the see-through pouch and the innovation you saw, global pouch. Do you have an idea or a sense of that of a more expensive material, or is, you know, since you're going away from metallized film, do you have any sense for that?
It all depends on the product that's going in and how long you want the shelf life to be on the product. So a lot of people don't want additives to their products to give it an extended shelf life. So you have to get a better barrier film. And barrier films do cost more money, but generally they're always less than a metallized film.
Okay, because that was actually the second question was tied into that. You know, what was the shelf life compromise? So there really isn't any. Okay. Again, there's another cost question, and this goes back to John. Paper versus the plastic dissolvable technologies. Is there a cost penalty going between one or the other? Is one a little bit more expensive, or is it application-based?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. It is application-based, but generally PVA, water-soluble PVA, slightly less expensive than water-soluble paper. The reason for that, Ron, is because water-soluble paper is a relatively new innovation. It has not yet been commoditized and hit some of those verticals that PVA has. We think, and we are seeing, tremendous growth with this specific technology. There are ways that you can mitigate some of those costs, and part of what we do every day is trying to find ways to make sure that we leverage the technology in such a manner that it hits the cost priorities and margin priorities of the consumer, which we believe the customers listening to this presentation will be able to do as well.
Great, great. Again, reminding everybody, if you have any other questions, please, we have questions coming in, but we're going to try to answer as many as we can. We have a few more minutes. Can you show any examples? You had some interesting part about the educational videos and safety as part of the label. Can you give us any examples of how somebody might specifically use? I saw the video, but are there any applications you can talk about, you know, in a true plant environment? Because oftentimes folks can't use their own smartphones in a plant. They're really not allowed to. So can you give us a sense for, is this really smartphone technology, or does it have to be something set up in the plant where somebody just scans a package?
I think it can go either way. More and more companies are allowing people to keep cell phones in their pockets. And if that person is actually doing their job, it's not really frowned upon, right? So if they're scanning that particular item in a plant environment, they're learning from that. I don't think companies are going to get mad about that, but I do have somewhat of a example I can share with you guys. We have a great customer of ours who's down the street from us who wanted to do something fun and exciting for one of their buyers who is retiring. This gentleman at this company had worked there for, I believe, 37 years, and their marketing team wanted to do something special for him. So what they did was they had a bunch of labels printed with a QR code and a picture of that employee on it. And what they did was they wrapped, I believe it was 40 to 50 bottles of cleaner and passed them out at his retirement party. When you scan that QR code, it told the story about this gentleman's entire career from when he started to when he retired. It's not really an educational one, but it tells a story, and I think that gentleman really appreciated the time that somebody spent putting that together for him.
Very interesting. Okay, that's kind of a cool. That's one you wouldn't think about, would it?
Yeah.
So you, John, you had mentioned earlier that paper dissolvable is good, is approved for indirect food contact. Is there any work or efforts to get it into direct food contact as a flavor? And it seems to me to be a very portion control kind of thing, as well as some other aspects. Is there any work on that side?
Yeah, absolutely there is, Ron. We're working proactively on that. We have the direct food contact approval is really tied to the adhesive that's being used on the material. The water-soluble paper itself is okay for direct food contact, but the paper alone without some form of an adhesive is not going to form into something that is usable in most cases. So we're working on an adhesive barrier coating that would give us the ability to deliver a package that would be direct food contact approved. And Ron, if I may, just circle back quickly, the first question you asked, I wanted to make sure I touched on this as well. One of the reasons that the companies that we're talking to in this industry, and you'll see the conversation and buzz around it, are driving towards fibrous-based or paper-based, bio-based technology. I'm not sure if you're familiar with some of the Tide Pod challenges that occurred on the internet with teenagers consuming these things. That I can't attribute to, there's nothing we can do about that, right? But in terms of babies or elderly who would go and see those PVA pods under the sink and they would view them as candy, that's been a major issue, and there's been a lot of articles on it. So the companies have come to us saying, well, we like the idea of having a paper barrier where you can put print on it and show it as hazardous. That doesn't mean you're going to 100% stop a baby or an elderly person, or certainly not a teenager, from consuming them, but it does create an added step in between the person, the baby that's viewing this, and the technology itself. Moreover, I mentioned bio-based versus petroleum-based. That's a critical facet of sustainability as you look at the impact on the oceans. There's a lot of buzz around that. I probably don't have the time to delve into that too much. And then finally, the ability to print on water-soluble paper. That's not something you can do on water-soluble PVA, which is a huge differentiator as brands seek to carry their brand to the end user. And the same innovation Joe's talking about with augmented reality and otherwise can be leveraged on this technology. You can print on it like you can any other substrate and surface. So that's a major advantage to those looking at this technology.
Okay. So again, probably more into our membership question, and this is where this kind of comes from. Is there any unique filling process for the paper, dissolvable paper process? Is there unique filling processes, filling machines? You know, tell us about, you know, how somebody might use this if they've got a need and how they might fill it.
Yeah, so this is an area where we want to make sure that you're coaching your customers and coaching your fillers. It is used on most common equipment, vertical form fill and seal equipment and otherwise. There's different companies that are using it in different ways. There are some things that they have to do to slightly modify their equipment, whether it's to run it at a slower speed or to ensure that the blades are extremely sharp, because the fibers can become pretty tough on the blades. But relatively speaking, it's used in commercial settings, and it's used without issue so long as they're able to dial it in. The one thing I would say that needs to be a caution that's always exacted in conversations around this technology is making sure that it's protected from water. The moment that water enters into the arena, you might have some potential degradation. That's not to say humidity. So it does work in humid environments. There's certain metrics that we talk about where we've seen Miami, Florida, we've seen companies using these pouches and forming pouches without issue. But if it turns into condensed water that starts to affect the package, that's going to matter. So we protect all of the water-soluble materials that we have that we're shipping inside of plastic wraps just to make sure that there's nothing that could touch it that would otherwise cause the degradation process prematurely.
Okay. Always proof in the pudding, so to speak, and this next question deals with that, is will we see any significant product launches of this technology, this dissolvable paper technology, in the near future? Can you give us any examples thereof? If not, we understand, but give us an insight. When will we see this
sure. I can speak in generalities just because of NDAs, and this is something that I think should be exciting to those packagers out there that are interested in leveraging this innovation. A lot of these companies swear us to secrecy because they view it as such a significant competitive advantage. They want to have the ability to make sure that their competition doesn't get access to it. So I'm bound in some cases, especially the larger cases, but I can speak to you in industry forums. You're going to see in the toys market segment coming out this Christmas a few toys that are leveraging this water-soluble paper package innovation. And it's going to be very exciting to see. Tons of orders are coming through all that already with millions of pouches. In the hospital segment, there is cases of this pouch being used on a filler, something that helps with spills that are occurring in the hospital, leveraging the benefits that I mentioned earlier of employee safety, leveraging the benefits of time savings, so it's an easier just toss than open and have to measure it out. So the proportioning aspect to it. And you'll be seeing this this innovation also being adopted in industrial categories, whether it's chemical categories, cosmetics categories. So there's a few out there where it's everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but if you're connected to those markets, you'll see this innovation in use. And if I may, I can point you to one thing that has happened that I can speak to publicly is BuzzFeed has a video using our water-soluble paper-based technology, and it's hit 1.5 million views, and it's just simply them using our technology and doing a DIY, do-it-yourself project where people coat soaps, shampoos, and detergents onto that paper, and they turn it into these little strips that are then used for camping or used for single-use travel, what have you. And we've
homeless people too, right?
You're right. Yeah, homeless people, absolutely. There's so ministries, charities have used the technology to help with some of the reduction of costs in terms of how they're using soaps and shampoos. And on our Amazon page, where we sell paper, we've seen a tremendous growth in that category because of that video and growth in knowledge in that arena.
Well, excellent, excellent. So this is probably our last question because it'll be a little bit more involved. The question is really about how, what is the process to look at, utilizing these technologies? How does someone get more information, get involved, and where can they go? Can you guys give us an insight of, what might be the process somebody has to go through to make, get their package into some of these technologies?
What we found is a lot of the SSIs start in marketing. Your marketing departments are really going to be the ones that drive this. A sales guy beat in the street is not going to sell this at a plant level. He's not going to go talk to a plant manager and try to sell something. This is going to come more out of a marketing budget than anything because it's an innovation. So that's what I would kind of say on my end.
And Ron, what I would say, this is going to sound like a selfish plug, but I truly am convicted by this. With Century Label's expertise in digital print equipment, with the 6800s, we were the first company to use the HP 8000 selected by HP for that project. There's a ton of experience that we have, the G7 certification that we have in print technology. Century Label is a wonderful source for anybody that's interested in leveraging this innovation. And then here at SmartSolve with water-soluble innovation, we are the leaders in this space, have a ton of knowledge, and can work with those interested on adopting this innovation for their customers.
And if you go back and look at the PowerPoint, there's many other videos that were in the PowerPoint that we didn't actually view. So we could kind of look at those. And then also Century Label's website has a lot of different blogs and informational pages where you guys can learn more about it. But it's always best if you would call one of the sales reps here. We have close to 100 years of experience in sales representation here. So any one of our sales reps can kind of tell you more about augmented reality or QR codes or any of the other products that you guys might be interested in.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I want to again thank you. Reminding everybody that this webinar in a couple of days will be up on the CPA website. More than happy for you to go back to review it, forward along to others. We're going to continue these series. Hopefully you found it enjoyable. John, excellent job. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. Thank to all of you who are on the webinar today. Look forward to seeing you all in a future webinar. And thank you. Appreciate it. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.